What are you tired of?
I didn't hear back from her.
Temple Paul King is the sheriff.
Okay, good to know.
Reggie is. I know. You don't have to. Reggie is a cool person. That's okay.
All the wood fire. I don't know. I really hadn't that takes some time. There he is.
All right, so how you doing? That's good.
It's beginning of October. Yeah, pretty much.
If I can hear me, kind of migrate back here around the shelter, please.
Well, that's how it works. See, I had to shake because I was. Hello, Governor. How are you, sir? Great. Doing good. Good to see everybody today.
If you want it louder. Actually, I'll go in the back and see when she falls.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk to Reed right there. I'll talk to Reed. How are you? Hello. Hey, just welcome to the ladies. Look at you, front row. I'm doing whatever. Is that a part of the camping? Yes. All right. I recognize one because I have one.
Welcome to California.
Okay, folks, why don't we get our chairs and seats standing in places and we will get started. Better? Okay, now I don't have to yell. Thanks everybody for coming today. My name's Mark Ellinger. I am the chair of the Cole County Bicentennial Committee, former presiding commissioner in Cole County, and I'm going to kind of serve as the MC to keep the trains on time here. The first thing we're going to ask everybody to do is please stand, those of you who are not, and we'll ask for the presentation of colors, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you to the Cole County Fire Protection District Color Guard for that presentation and for the pledge. I'd now like to ask you to remain standing for a moment for the invocation. It's my pleasure to introduce the Reverend Cornell Sudduth, the Second Baptist Church, Jefferson City, Missouri. Are the original founders of Cole County, the original inhabitants here from the settlements, were all Baptists. That was the start of Cole County. It was the start, by and large, of Callaway and of Boone County. So it seemed fitting that Pastor Sudduth from Second Baptist Church would lead us in the invocation. Pastor.
Let us pray. Gracious and eternal God, first of all, we say thank you for the beauty and the blessings of this day, for the purpose in which we are assembled to celebrate the 200 years of existence of Cole, Boone, and Callaway counties. We say thank you. For the citizenry of these three counties, past, present, and future, we say thank you. For the cities that make up these three counties, we say thank you. And for the state of Missouri that these three counties helped form, we say thank you. Now, Lord, we petition your presence in our deliberations today, that in all that is said and done, you will receive the praise, the thanks, and the glory that is due you. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Sutta. You may all be seated. It's really a pleasure to have so many folks out here today to celebrate the bicentennial of our three counties, Cole County, Boone County, and Callaway County. It's hard to imagine that 200 years ago today, I wonder if the weather was as beautiful. Two of the three counties came into creation, that being Boone and Cole, and just a few short 9 days later, Callaway County came into existence. It's an amazing component of our history as a people and as a state, how these counties have had so much influence on the long-term growth and development of our state. And I think over the course of the next few minutes, you're going to hear a number of talks about the history of our county, our counties, excuse me, and the great things that have been done because these counties were created and because the state of Missouri came into formation almost 200 years ago. It's nice to have the youngsters here from the state of Missouri, since we're the old guys with 200 years underneath us. This couldn't be done without the generous support of so many sponsors. As an example, and I just want to point one out in particular, the concrete that's out here was all donated by Cole County Industries. The time and labor was donated by the Jefferson City Public Works Department. It's just a great opportunity to show how everybody in communities get together to put this together. But the monument is really the linchpin of this entire celebration. And there wouldn't be a monument if it weren't for the generosity of one of the great businesses that has started in Jefferson City and has an influence in all three counties. It's focused here in mid-Missouri. It's headquartered here in mid-Missouri, Central Bank. And I'd like to point out that right there on the front of the monument, you can see their logo. I really think it's impressive the way they have, for years and years and years, stepped up to help our communities and our state. And it's my pleasure to introduce the president of Central Bank, David Minton, to say a few remarks. David?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. And good morning. I am David Minton. I'm the president and CEO of Central Bank. People often refer to the middle of our country as the heartland. They inevitably mention its friendly culture, its tremendous agricultural impact, and its natural beauty. As we celebrate this dedication today, it's worth noting that Cole, Boone, and Callaway counties are definitely the heartland of Missouri. Simply put, they keep Missouri together. Through their position in the middle of our state, roughly equidistant from St. Louis and Kansas City, these counties help to facilitate travel, commerce, and leisure to millions. They connect the rest of the state to its capital city, which provides a base for state services vital to all Missourians. These counties are also home to many of the state's leading institutions of higher education, most notably the state's flagship, the University of Missouri, as well as another land-grant school, Lincoln University, and liberal arts leaders William Woods, Westminster, and Columbia College. These counties are home to a rich and diverse economy, including a strong mix of large industry, small businesses, and agricultural operations. They also provide a setting for higher education for students from across the world. Central Bank is proud to have helped the growth and development of these counties. Our organization started in Cole County, as Mark said, on January 9, 1902. and we started as the Central Missouri Trust Company. Sam Baker Cook moved to Jefferson City in 1900 after being elected Missouri's Secretary of State. In 1905, he assumed the presidency of the Central Missouri Trust Company, beginning a legacy of service to Cole County and the state of Missouri that continues today. Sam Baker Cook's greatest contribution to Cole County was leading the fight to make sure that Jefferson City would remain the state capital after the Capitol building was struck by lightning and destroyed by fire on February 5, 1911. Jefferson City leaders, with Cook at the helm, fought to secure the city's future by preserving it as the state capital. On August 1, 1911, Missourians voted to issue $3.5 million in bonds to build a new capital in Jefferson City. Sam Baker Cook continued to lead the Central Missouri Trust Company until his death in 1931. He was succeeded by his son, Howard Cook, who took over the bank leadership in the heart of the Great Depression. By mid-September 1933, the state of Missouri had only $15,000 in its general revenue fund, not clearly enough to meet the monthly state payroll of $300,000. In addition, state officials were notified that Missouri needed to come up with $250,000 to make the state eligible for federal relief funds. On September 15, 1933, Central Bank agreed to make available to the state of Missouri up to $1 million so state employees, many of whom lived and worked in Cole, Callaway, and Boone counties, could be paid and Missouri could secure the federal funds. This averted a certain financial crisis. Sorry, a little windy. In the years that followed, our bank and its holding company expanded its operations to both Boone and Callaway counties. In 1974, Central Bank Company acquired Boone County National Bank, and in 1999, Central Bank acquired Fulton Savings Bank. Since then, our connection to these counties has grown considerably. We've developed relationships that have contributed to the economic development of all the counties, while all the while providing customers outstanding banking services and community support second to none. In 2019, our family of banks donated more than $1.6 million to local communities, volunteered more than 27,000 hours, and served on more than 2,000 local not-for-profits and agencies. Much of this support directly occurred in and benefited the people of Cole, Boone, and Callaway counties. In closing, it's clear that by investing in these counties, our bank, its employees, and the customers we serve are stronger. We're proud of this legacy and constantly strive to understand the needs of our customers and how we can work to make those needs a reality. Cole, Boone, and Callaway counties are different places because of our banks, and we are certainly a better bank because of their support. However, as of late, areas throughout these counties have experienced great adversity. In the last 18 months, a tornado, flooding, and of course the pandemic have challenged our resiliency. And yet, all of these obstacles have proven one thing: the heartland of Missouri is strong. We stick together, rise to the occasion, and overcome. It's who we are and who we will always be. On behalf of Central Bank, I want to congratulate Cole, Boone, and Callaway counties on 200 years of achievement and express great confidence for the next 200 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And once again, deepest thanks to Central Bank. When the request was made to help pay for the marker, it was an immediate yes, and we are so deeply grateful for that. And I think it's a marker that'll last the test of time. Speaking of the test of time, it's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. So growing up in Jefferson City as a kid, Bob Priddy was the voice of the Missourinette. Bob Priddy was the man who told stories about our state. If you haven't read Across Our Wide Missouri, listening to that on the radio was one of the great joys and remembrances of my childhood. While he may not officially be the state historian, I think most of us around here would say he's the state historian. He's at least the keeper of the state's history, and he's the scribe of the state's history. And I think you will learn that today if you haven't heard him speak before. I commend his books to you because the stories there are the stories of our history, told not in a format of textbook, but in a format of narrative of those who lived it or might have lived it, and looking back at it. I think you're going to find his remarks about our counties to be informative and instructive, but most importantly, entertaining. It's my pleasure to introduce Bob Priddy.
Well, that's certainly something to live up to. Thank you, Mark. This is the third time that I've given a speech in conjunction with Cole County's bicentennial, and the third time the wind has been blowing, and I'm tired of it. So I'm going to use something to hold down the pages. This is, Governor, it's good to see you. I kind of miss, you know, I was a reporter in the Capitol all those years, and I kind of miss not being able to come over and grill people like you. This is an appropriate place to recognize the 200th birthday of these three counties that constitute the heart of Missouri, the intellectual, political, and population center of our state. Before I proceed too far, I'm curious to know if we have any ancestors or descendants of the Boone, Callaway, and Cole counties with us. Yes. If you do, would you hold up your hands or something? You are. And I know some Cole family folks are over here. And there's other people. We're glad to have all of you here because your ancestors are the ones who made this entire event possible and have made our entire history possible. This marker on what is now the longest state park in America, the country's longest rails to trails conversion, is a major thing for us to have here. It marks the development of our area as part of a country that now stretches coast to coast. At the time that those pioneers first settled here, we were a country that stretched about to here and not much further. They laid the groundwork for the country that now goes from one ocean to another. These three counties are the homes of 2 universities and 4 colleges. Mic up closer, all right. This area is the home of an institution that for many years was known as the State University. It is the home of a school that was founded by African-American Civil War veterans who wanted to train teachers to teach former slaves to read, something that was illegal in the state of Missouri until the Civil War. It is the home of 3 colleges founded by fathers and mothers who wanted their daughters to be educated women and their sons to be educated gentlemen. It is an area that felt the pain of the hottest war in American history and the home of a place where the Cold War was first identified. And it's a place where the benediction of the Cold War was given about a half century later. This is an area of farmers. It was once the home of shoe factories and mines and places where cities were planned by hopeful people. Some of those hopes were not realized because the cities never really germinated. But for many places, many people founded the cities that now are prideful places for us to have and places for us to live. The fact is, we live their legacy. And today we're here to celebrate that legacy and remind ourselves to cherish the things that they have given us. If this blows away, I'm not going to worry about it. I have a copy at home. It also is an opportunity for us to think not only about ourselves and the bicentennial, but it's an opportunity to think about those who will gather here for the tricentennial and what kind of a place they will come from and what kind of people they will be. We all come from 3 counties with so many differences, but so much that is similar. Boone and Cole counties were created by a bill passed, as was mentioned, on November 16, 1820, 200 years ago today, in a primitive temporary capital above a mercantile store in St. Charles, where the House and the Senate were in rooms next to each other. Rooms that were places of tables and chairs and spittoons and fireplaces. Nicely dressed city people mingling with rougher dressed people from what was then the edges of the state's civilized areas. Callaway County, created 9 days later, also carved out of Howard County, a once massive 22,000 square mile area that included places that now include 10 counties in Iowa and extended all the way south to the counties of Benton, Henry, Morgan, and Miller counties in Missouri today. The legislature was in a county creating mood at that time. On the 16th, it also created Sheraton, Lafayette, Perry, Rawls, and Ray counties. And on the 25th, when it created Callaway County, Saline County was formed, and so was Gasconade County. 10 counties in 9 days because a new state needed more structure than a territory. And this was the first state legislature that was going to be meeting to draft a constitution. We were not yet a state. The bills that passed in November went into effect on January the 1st of 1821. That, I guess, would be the true birthday of our 3 counties. But I don't suppose very many of us would want to be out here on New Year's Day to celebrate that. We had to have a state legislature to create the offices the state would have when we became a state and establish the state boundaries and the boundaries for the areas within those lines. So the state constitution had to be written for Congress to approve before we could become a state 10 months after our counties were created. I would love to have been there to hear the discussions of how they were going to name these counties, who these people were, and why they thought they were important enough for our counties to bear their names. Daniel Boone, of course, was a given since he had died just a couple of months earlier. Those of us who live in Cole County and have learned this year that in the last 6 months or so that we have been telling people for 150 years or more that we were named for the wrong man. It would be interesting to hear that discussion. Why our county was named for William Temple Cole, not Stephen Cole, his brother, the person we've been claiming our county was named for. William Temple Cole had no particular distinguishing features of his life other than the fact that he was among some folks who followed Daniel Boone to Missouri, helped establish settlements in the first decade after this became American property. An 1823 article in the New Franklin newspaper, the first newspaper published west of St. Louis, wrote that William Temple Cole was killed by Indians in 1810 because of imprudence. That meant that he and 5 other people, including his brother Stephen, had gone in pursuit of some Indian horse thieves who stole horses from their settlement in Montgomery County. And they got close to them somewhere in what is believed to be Audrain County. But instead of going after the Indians late in the day, they decided to pitch camp, cook some meal, build a nice big fire, and then go to sleep. Stephen said, "You better have some guards around here because the Indians are close." But William Temple Cole and his others said, "No, we don't need that." And during the night, the Indians did attack. Stephen survived with 20 wounds, and so did another man, but all of the others were killed, including William Temple. And William Temple, therefore, became someone that we named a county for. Imprudence. James Callaway, the grandson of Daniel Boone, was also killed by Indians. I have not found a newspaper reference to say that he also was killed because of imprudence, but he was. He was leading some volunteers in 1815, chasing some Indians who crossed a creek, and he was told not to chase the Indians across the creek because they were waiting in ambush for him, probably. But James Callaway and 2 other men decided they would cross the creek, and very shortly thereafter became corpses, for which we named Callaway County for him. When it came time to name these 3 counties, naming 2 of them for victims of Indian conflicts was not unusual. Cooper County, for which we were carved 2 years earlier, was named for a man who was killed by Indians, Sarshall Cooper, at Cooper's Fort in Howard County. Not in the open like the others were, but Sarshall Cooper was in his own cabin inside the fort, and an Indian found a chink between the logs and stuck a gun through the chink and shot him as he sat in his chair. So it wasn't unusual to name counties for people who had been killed by Indians in those days. Daniel Boone survived an encounter with Indians. In 1778, he was captured by the Shawnees. But showing the diplomacy that had to be his, he convinced the Indians that he was a friend, and he was in fact adopted by the chief who had lost his own son in a battle earlier. And several months later, Boone escaped, went back to Boonesboro, 160 miles away, and warned of a possible Indian attack. He survived the move to then Spanish Missouri and died just before Boone County was born. Imprudence notwithstanding, 2 of these counties are named for victims of Indian attacks, and the 3rd is for an Indian escapee. These 3 counties are also the heart of the great westward migration. The Boone's Lick Road became one of the links from the national road that began in Cumberland, Maryland in 1811 and made it all the way to Vandalia, Illinois. And then the Boone's Lick Road began in St. Charles, and it brought entrepreneurs and adventurers and settlers through Callaway and Boone counties, eventually, long before these counties had names, and then on to the trailhead of what became the Santa Fe Trail. And the Santa Fe Trail became the California Trail and the Oregon Trail, eventually turning the old National Trails Road and then Highway 40, and then the corridor for Interstate 70, the 5th longest interstate highway in the country at 2,153 miles. It actually begins with a park and ride lot in Maryland, and it ends in a little town in southwest Utah where it links up with Interstate 15 to go to San Diego. We are right in the middle of what became the great national railroad, the great national road that linked one coast with another. Indian traces that became trails, trails that became highways, highways that became interstates were important in filling up the middle part of this country through the years. The Missouri River that forms part of the boundaries of all 3 of our counties was the liquid highway that took people to the west, right through the Boone's Lick area. The pathway for the first people to walk through here long before Lewis and Clark, but of course it was Lewis and Clark's main highway too. And when we talk of individual pioneers, or groups of pioneers that went west in their covered wagons, let's also remember the steamboats that came up the river and carried thousands of people to the west, to places like Westport, St. Joseph, and places even further north, and eventually helped populate the Northwest and all of the frontier between here and the ocean. The optimistically named Pacific Railroad came through here in the 1850s and 1860s. The first locomotive in Jefferson City, by the way, arrived by steamboat, as did the first locomotive in St. Louis, the first one in Kansas City. The Pacific became the Missouri Pacific, and then the Union Pacific. The Union Pacific was the line that linked up with the Central Pacific and gave us a transcontinental railroad. The Chicago and Alton came right down here to Cedar City, linking passengers who could cross a new bridge in 1896 that helped save Jefferson City from losing the state capital to Sedalia. And that bridge, linking up with the railroad over here, helped keep Jefferson City as our seat of state government. And here we are next to the Missouri, Kansas, Texas line, which served not only this area, but it served Columbia too. These 3 counties are not just the heart of Missouri. They were the crossroads of the nation. The West flowed through these 3 counties. We shared the tragedies of the Civil War that ended slavery in our 3 counties. Our soldiers have fought, and many have died in nations' wars that were created since then. Even before we were part of the nation, our people were dying in the War of 1812. Just 5 days ago here in Jefferson City, we broke the ground for a new special monument for the Gold Star families of mid-Missouri who lost loved ones in the service. It will be built near the Capitol. So today, we mark the first 200 years of Boone and Callaway and Cole counties, which listed alphabetically so nobody could accuse me of favoritism. Places with common histories and great differences. We are 21st century citizens who are the heritage of those who arrived with hope and calloused hands and carved the pathways and built the farms and the settlements that have brought us counties and our state and a nation based on inalienable truths and hope. Through these 2 centuries, these gifts have given to us, although slowly and sometimes painfully, a state and nation of opportunities for all that those first settlers could not possibly have ever dreamed of. We are in the midst of those old trails, those old railroads, and the great rivers that brought people here and then carried others to the farther reaches of the West with their hopes and their willingness to work and to make their opportunities become real. 200 years ago, They took the first steps that have brought us here today. This event gives us some choices to make. Will we continue to follow the trails that they established through extraordinary effort and with the inalienable truths and hope that they brought with them? Or will we follow new trails of fiction and fear, too easily established these days and too easy to follow blindly? What kind of people in what kind of county, state, and nation do we want to have gathered here 100 years from now around this then aging monument? Our generations will take the first steps on that new trail that stretches before us, the steps that will determine what kind of people and what kind of nation will be here 100 years from now. So let our celebration of the past be brief. Let our steps today be taken. Let our steps today be steps that those celebrating the tricentennial of our Tri-County heart of Missouri will be as grateful for us taking as we are for the steps that were taken by those who were here first 200 years ago.
Thank you very much, Bob. I think everybody gets to see why I say he's not the official historian, he is the historian of our state. As he mentioned, 3 counties celebrating the Tri-County Monument over here: Boone, Callaway, and Cole. And it's my pleasure now to introduce the 3 presiding commissioners of Boone, Callaway, and Cole. Thank you, Bob, for reminding me to do it in alphabetical order. It also works well with the script because that's the order too. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Dan Atwell, who is the presiding commissioner of Boone County, Gary Youngerman, who is the presiding commissioner of Callaway County, and Sam Bushman, who's the presiding commissioner of Cole County. Gentlemen, please.
Not optimum conditions for speaking, but I'm sure the governor can handle it. I was going to give the speech that Bob Priddy gave, but thank you, Bob. I don't have to go through that. But in 1803, the United States acquired this area as part of the Louisiana Purchase from France. Oh, is that better? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. At that time, in 1803, the population of what is now called the state of Missouri was about 65,000 people. 17 years later, a mere 17 years, Boone, Cole, and Callaway counties were officially formed. In just 17 years from the date of purchase, these counties with minimal populations were organized enough to establish boundaries and a system of governance. Try to imagine life in 1820. No roads, no railroads, no telegraph, no radio, and certainly no iPhones. Life existed at a different pace. Yet in 17 years, from 1803 to 1820, much was accomplished. In the 200 years since the creation of our counties, progress has been made at a greater and more effective rate than at any other time in recorded history. We are extremely fortunate to be alive at this moment in time. What will the next 200 years bring? No one knows. But with luck, Bob, how'd you do that? The monument erected at this location will be here in 200 years, lasting proof that in this year, 2020, we celebrated the 200 years of existence of our respective counties and did our best to make a lasting statement honoring this event. And I'd like to take just a moment to recognize Boone County Commissioner Janet Thompson, who's over there, was over there. Janet, Janet came to the Boone County Commission probably a year and a half ago and said, we need a monument on the trail recognizing the 3 counties that we're here about. And that seemed like a rather odd idea at the time. What do you have in mind, Janet, was the question. Well, a granite monument like the Washington Monument, only smaller. So Janet persisted with that concept, and I can assure you that without her persistence, we would not be here today with this monument. She worked very hard and continues today to persist in the idea that this is the ideal place for such a monument because she has spent a great deal of time walking the trail and has met people from all different walks of life and from many countries who have told her that this is the most beautiful part of the entire trail across the state. And she thought that this would be the ideal location, and I'm sure she twisted arms in Callaway and Cole County to make this a reality. So thank you, Janet, for all you've done, and it is appreciated.
Thank you, Dan. I too, Janet, want to thank you for everything you've done. You've been a key player, and Mark Ellinger and Sam have done. It takes a lot of work to put something like this together, and if not for the 3 of them pushing forward and doing that, this wouldn't have happened today. So probably it takes a lot of work from a lot of people to get it done. I'm not going to stay up here long, but I do want to recognize them. I want to welcome everybody to Callaway County. For an example, right out the gate, I want to welcome you to Callaway, North Jeff City, Missouri also, so thank you all for coming. I do want to recognize a group that I have, though, that's working hard in Callaway County to recognize 200 years of Callaway County. So I'm going to start off, just raise your hand if you're here. This is Callaway County's 200 committee that was put together to organize what we do. Susan Crum, I know she's here. There's Susan back there. John Bell. Susan and John are the co-chairs of the Callaway 200 committee. Stacy Maskey. Doc Kreitzer, whom everybody in the world knows. Doc Kreitzer, I believe. Renee Graham. Barb Huddleston, Bruce Hackman, Bryant Little, Diane Berry Ludwig, Don Soph, Gracia Backer, who's right here. Thank you, Gracia. Hannah Lechner, Joe Holt, there's Joe. Joe Davis, who I also seen. Lisa Martin, Nancy Lewis, Marty Wilson, Blaine McQuaid Pestle, and Kelly Borman. I know Kelly's here as well. So I want to thank that group for everything that they've done and working with Callaway County, and also working with some of the verbiage that's on this monument here today. Also, I'd like to recognize our Chamber Director, Tamara Tatijian, is here, along with several of the Chamber members from Callaway County, so I want to thank them for being here today and being part of this dedication of this monument. This is a big day for Callaway County and Boone and Cole to celebrate together, because I agree with everything that's been said here so far, and the governor's coming up yet, but you know, we have, I believe, a bright future here in Central Missouri. And it's going to be key that some of the steps that we take over the next 100 years to make sure we get to that tricentennial and make people then proud of what we've done, along with how we all started and came to this point. So thank you all very much.
See, shoestrings come in handy. You know, you just do a shoestring. First, I want to thank some of our special guests from Cole County. Our state senator, Mike Bernskoetter, is here. Our state representatives, Rudy Veit and Dave Griffith, are here. Mayor Carrie Turgeon from Jefferson City is here. So thank you for coming out and helping us celebrate our birthday today. On November 16th, 1820, Governor Alexander McNair and the Missouri legislature meeting in St. Louis created Cole County. Governor Parson, you might enjoy this. Having been sheriff of Pike County, the first appointment that the legislature made was the sheriff, Paul Whitley. Then they appointed the 3 county judges, commissioners, John Vivian, James Stark, and Jason Harrison. Marion was the only existing town in Cole County, so that became our county seat by default. And so after meeting in people's homes, we decided we needed some county buildings, offices. So the first building that Cole County built was the jail. And it was a 14 by 14 foot square log cabin, and we built it at a cost of $690. Then after that, we built the courthouse. Our population was only 1,028 people in 1820. As Jefferson City grew, the Cole County judges made the decision to move the county seat to the state capitol. And on March 30th, 1829, we held our first session in a private home. Again, we decided we needed offices. And what do you think we built first, Governor? The jail. We built a jail to the north of the alley there by the First Methodist Church, and it cost a whole whopping $900. So again, we built the jail. Under Mark's leadership, we built a new jail in 2011 for a cost of $28 million. But, you know, inflation, it's inflation. Anyway, but Cole County joyfully celebrates its 200th birthday, and we are honored to have the Missouri Capitol in our county. We are older than the state of Missouri, and it is our privilege to turn over the reins to Governor Mike Parson to kick off Missouri's bicentennial in 2021. We have a gift from the 3 counties to present you, if you would come up. Wow. Okay. Hand you this. When Missouri came into the Union, we were the 24th state in the Union. So this is a 24-star flag, and that served as the national flag from 1822, actually, until 1936, when Arkansas became a state. So we have a message here presented to Missouri Governor Michael Parson on November 16, 2020, in celebration of the bicentennial of Cole, Boone, and Callaway counties, 1820 to 2020. This is our 24-star flag, and we are flying this year and next year at the Cole County Courthouse. So this is a gift from us, and we thank you. You get to take over the reins now and do the Missouri bicentennial.
All right, great. Thank you, Shane. As we always said, as presiding commissioners, other duties as assigned, right, gentlemen?
Yes, right.
You know, I want to echo a remark that Gary made. There's an enormous number of volunteers that made today possible. Some of them are here, some of them are not here. I know that the Cole County Bicentennial Committee, I see several folks from our committee. And I really want to appreciate, I think, everybody that's here. The other thing I think that goes without, sometimes gets overlooked, is our spouses allow us to do this. My wife is here somewhere. She allows me to do these crazy things. Thanks, Chrissy, love you. And I think all our spouses allow us to do that. If it weren't for them giving us to folks to allow us, I think a lot of things wouldn't get done. And thank you all very much for that. You know, we're here at a beautiful location, the Katy Trail. We heard a little bit about the history of the Katy Trail. It's really my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, who is the director of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, which oversees many things, including the state parks, including the Katy Trail. Carol Comer became the director of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources in January of 2017. She was previously the commissioner of the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, which I think is kind of analogous to the Department of Natural Resources. She began her practice as a private attorney representing companies in environmental and utility matters. She was an administrative law judge. Good to have lawyers up here. We're always happy to have more of us. She also serves, and I think this is particularly important for today, she serves as a member of the State of Missouri's Bicentennial Commission. Next year is the 200th anniversary. We're fortunate to have one of the co-chairs, Mayor Kerry Turgeon, is one of the co-chairs. Ron Richard, former senator, I guess he was the president pro tem from Joplin, is the other co-chair, and it's really a pleasure to have Director Comer here to represent the commission and represent the Department of Natural Resources. So it's my pleasure to introduce Carol Comer.
Good morning. It is a beautiful day today, isn't it? I am honored to be here for the dedication of the Tri-County Monument, signifying the partnerships between Boone, Callaway, and Cole County. Yes, I did rearrange that order as I was sitting there, and commemorating the 200th birthdays of those counties. This location is special to the Department of Natural Resources because the Katy Trail is one of 91 state parks and historic sites, and the trail provides recreational opportunities to approximately 400,000 visitors annually. Moreover, it's a fitting location for the monument. The trail runs by our capital, right here in Jefferson City. A colleague of mine runs every morning on the Katy Trail, Randall Williams. He said, "Carol, I've traveled the world, but there's very little that beats the sight of the Capitol from the Katy Trail as the sun comes up on the Missouri River." It's hard for me not to do that with a really strong North Carolina accent, because if you know Dr. Williams, the head of Health and Senior Services, he comes from North Carolina, so it's more like, Carol? So anyway, and he's correct. The Katy Trail's impact isn't just recreational, though. It has an economic impact of $18 million annually. This year has been truly important for state parks and important for the Katy Trail. From April to October of 2020, total trail visitation was up almost 95% over last year. Clearly, Missourians need to be outside. Clearly, they need recreation, they need exercise opportunities during this crisis, and they relied on the Katy Trail to provide that. It provides fresh air, it provides exercise, it's good for the physical health, but it's good for everybody's emotional health too. With 240 miles of Katy Trail State Parks and 47.5 miles of the Rock Island Spur, Missouri continues to be a leader in the development and maintenance of rail trails across the nation. The trail is designated as an official segment of the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, running along the river from St. Charles to Booneville. And in 2008, it was only the second trail in the nation to be added to the Rail Trail Hall of Fame by the National Rails to Trails Conservancy, recognizing exemplary rail trails. The trail is on the former rail bed of the Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad, which was often shortened to MKT, which is how the trail got its name. When the Union Pacific Railroad decided to cease operations from Mackins to Sedalia in 1986, DNR used the National Trail System Act to bank the corridor for future recreational needs. A donation by the Edward and Pat Jones Foundation made it possible to acquire the right-of-way and develop the initial corridor from St. Charles to Sedalia. The section from Sedalia to Clinton was later donated by the railroad. The first section of the trail near Rocheport was opened in 1990, and although celebrations look a little different this year, we are actually celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Katy Trail State Park. We're excited to be selected as the home for the Tri-County Monument, and we are proud to play such an integral role in celebrating and commemorating Missouri's bicentennial. And I want to thank our state parks folks that were integral in helping site the monument. They worked really hard to get everything done in a timely manner, and we really appreciate all the hard work. So now, I have the honor of introducing the 57th Governor of Missouri, a dedicated public servant, a lifelong Missourian, a farmer, a small business owner. Please welcome Governor Mike Parson.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Wow. The most important thing, a grandparent, I got to say, of 6. I've got to put that in there. Great to be here today. What a beautiful day. And for you commissioners, the presentation of the colors, to me, what an honor that was, being a veteran, how much that meant to me, and to kick off the bicentennial of our state, 200, and the mansion's 150. So a lot of history going on. So I thank you commissioners for being here today. Mark, I appreciate you for leading this day. Carol, I just appreciate the job you do every day for the people of the state of Missouri. And anytime I sit there and I'm just totally amazed when I hear Bob up here speaking and the knowledge he has. And I got news for all of you out there. These papers he is flipping around, they didn't have anything on them. They was all blank. And ain't nobody in here knows any difference whether he was right or not. I can tell you that right now. I thought about, as Bob said something when he first come up here, he said he missed sometimes talking about being at the Capitol and the Capitol Press Corps, and maybe giving me a little bit of a hard time, or a governor a little bit of a hard time, and what he's been through. You know, I was sitting there thinking of the Capitol Corps I get to see on a weekly basis, of the young men and young women that are the Capitol Corps, Press Corps, and I hope somebody in there someday will have the reputation of a Bob Priddy, of a man that stood up for news, that stood up for trying to put that information out to the general public. And I see those young reporters in there sometimes. I hope somebody in there someday will have the reputation that you had, Bob, for your career. It was an honor to be able to. Now, everybody had notes up here, so I don't have any notes, so you guys are stuck with me because I want to shoot from the hip here a little bit. But when they started talking about the Baptist starting this all, man, I was sitting up in my chair pretty high. I was saying, I'm one of them. But then Sam just totally deflated me when he said the first building they built was a jail. For us Baptists, I guess. I don't know. When I hear the history as the governor of the state of Missouri, maybe I appreciate it more today than what I known before I ever took this role. The role I have in the state capitol, of the Capitol burning, of living in the mansion. Me and the First Lady are so humbled every day to be able to live in that building. And to be able to tell the stories that are on the walls of the First Ladies, of pictures that are in there, of pieces of furniture. And you think of the history of who we are in the state, and how important that is to preserve over the years, that we can pass that down to the next generations. And I really think, I know there'll be a lot of celebrations, as we are today, the 3 counties, but I also think of the history this brings for all of us today. Today we're all here as individuals, and we probably don't think too much of it. But a year from now, somebody will talk about that monument when they bring their family out here and their kids. 100 years and 200 years from now, they'll be talking about all of us that was here at this presentation, who was here, who the speakers were, why they built the monument in the first place. And I think those are the things that are so important as we preserve history in our state. And as you heard Bob just tell some of the stories of where we've been and where we are today, and how important it is for all of us to make sure somebody gets to share the story of this great state. I think so many times when I'm the 57th governor that I use that a lot. I use it because I think it's totally important that only 56 people in the state of Missouri in 200 years have been in a governor's position. Not very many people get to do that position. So you should be held to higher standards. It's an honorable thing, and I think someday, I hope when people read the history, we're all proud of the people as represented us across this state in the future. And I think I have the opportunity at the mansion to look at books at different governors and read stories about them. But the one thing I will tell you that I believe for the most part,
every governor in the state of Missouri I read about in some of the books and some of the articles, I'll tell you one thing they have in common. It's not politics. It's about the love of this state and the love of this people. And you see that in them, and you hear it in their stories, and how much this state means to us. And I think this represents all of us. What they did represents me and you today, about who we are in this state. Where tomorrow goes depends on what we do today, and what our history will be and what our legacy will be. And someday, 200 years from now, somebody's going to be sitting out here at some event, and they're going to be talking about our history. They're going to be talking about this monument. They're going to be talking about all of us who's out here one day. Those are the things that I think are important in life sometimes, that we take for granted sometimes, all the privileges we have and the abilities we have. And sometimes we just need to step back and say, you know what? It's great to live in this country. It's great to live in this state. It's great to be a Missourian. And it's great to be part of preserving history, and I think today that's what this is about. I look forward to 2021 and to celebrate 200 years for our state. But what a better day to start it off than here with Cole, Callaway, and Boone County, and all of you that are here today to kick this off, to celebrate 200 years of Missouri history. It is an honor and privilege to be the 57th governor of the state of Missouri. God bless, and thank you all for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor. It's a pleasure to have you here today, and thanks for your service to our state. And certainly on behalf of everybody here, thank you very much for being here today. And with that, I'm going to introduce the Presiding Commissioner of Callaway County, our host, so to speak, to have some concluding remarks, and then I believe we're going to do a ribbon cutting in front of the monument, and everybody's welcome to join us for that. So, Gary Youngerman, the Presiding Commissioner of Callaway County. Gary?
Well, I guess first thing is thank you. Thank everybody for coming here today. I think this is a great day. You know, we've been blessed with everyone before us giving us what we have today and the opportunities that we have today. We've got big shoes to fill. I know when I came into office, I'm in my 10th year and proud to have served Callaway County for 10 years. Some of the feedback I've gotten over those 10 years is tremendous, and it all leads into today, because these three counties in central Missouri, Jefferson City being the capital, we are watched by a lot of counties throughout the state. You would not believe how many people have come to me, you know, whether it's been just bad years through a little you know, low revenue streams, or with COVID as we're going through in 2020. How many people have called and asked questions? What are you doing? We're watching what you're doing. And so I'm very proud to represent Callaway County and hopefully continue on the tradition that's been moved for years and years and years. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. Thank for me having the opportunity. We're proud as Callaway County and Callawegians to have this monument here in the county. Couldn't be prouder of what's going on today. I'm proud of the relationships that I have with Cole and Boone counties and with the state of Missouri. I think we work well together, and we're going to continue that. So I just want to say one thing, though, Sam. I think we built a better jail than you did back in the day, because I think that was our first building, and it cost us a little over $700 for ours, I believe. So, so I just wanted to throw that out there just to let you know. And most people know Callaway County's history. So just in case you need a pass or something to get out of Callaway County right away, check with Gracia or one of the committee members. They should be able to get you free and clear out of the county. So anyway, thank you all again. Appreciate it. Mark, I'm going to give this back to you to adjourn, and we're going to cut. Sounds like we're going to cut a ribbon. So thank all of you again for coming. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to come forward and have the Chamber of Commerce ambassadors come up and cut a ribbon on the monument. So please.
Those of you with good young knees can kneel in front if you want.